project I'm working on today is a grandfather clock, and we've got a couple cold moldings to make. First one is the one you can see for the base and the waist. And as we bring the camera on up, there's going to be a second molding that goes at the top of the grandfather clock. Some of you asked what it takes to install a CNC cove cutter on a table saw. First things first, the saw is unplugged. It's real simple. We're going to install the factory spacer that comes with the cove cutter, the cove cutter itself, and our rubber nut. Tighten it down. And that's it. In my application, I'm able to use my dado insert. If you can't, either find or make some sort of insert for this operation, but you need to use a table saw insert. When we run cove molding through the table saw, we need some sort of fence. In this case, I'm going to use this piece of aluminum angle. It's a piece I had around the shop for quite a while. I went ahead and drawn the cove, the desired cove out, and I found my angle. Now there's a bunch of different ways to find the or set up for your angle. You could sight it by eye once you have the blade to desired height. You could use a pair of parallelograms to find your exact angle. Or in my case, I went through an online calculator, ran the formula, and it told me that the miter gauge needed to be at 53 degrees. And this is the top molding we're working at, by the way. So with that information in hand, I could swing the miter gauge to 53 degrees, align the cove up, try to sight it, making sure it stays at that angle, and we'll clamp the fence in place. The fine woodworking calculator is actually put out by Stuart Sabol. Hopefully you guys name put out correctly. As you can see, we've got the fence clamped down. We've got added a couple feather boards to keep stacked against the fence. And we're just about ready to make that first cut. I'm going to lower the head just a little bit. Let's talk about safety for another second. A couple tools we're going to use today to keep our hands away from those blades. Our first, just an ordinary push block, nothing fancy. And the next is the homemade device. This is really a push shoe that I've used really on my joiner, but it's great for when we're running cove molding. It lets me do a couple things. I can have my pressure down and across the stock, and I don't have to worry about deflating my cove. Now this piece of poplar is a test piece for real cove molding, which will be made from cherry. So we're just about ready to make the first test cut here. I'm not going to try to take a lot of material at once. I only want to remove about a 1/16 of an inch per pass. And I feel like we've got that set up here. I'm doing one final check to see how high that cove cutter is going to remove material. So I can come up just a hairbreadth more. Okay, let's plug in the saw, put on our personal protection equipment, turn on the dust collector, and see what we get. With the setup, it takes trial and error, but eventually you'll get it. In this case, we're real close. I could probably raise the blade just another hairbreadth more, but in this case, I'm going to leave it. I first started cove cutting when I first started woodworking many years ago. This is a nice skill I've enjoyed doing and I will continue to do. Mark Spragno, host of The Wood Whisperer, has a nice video series on terminology and cove cutting, and he's got a real nice double fence. That's great for when you're doing asymmetrical coves, and that's highly recommended. for doing symmetrical coves like what we're doing tonight. It's not needed, it's a nice to have. So we've got the cove, cutting the sample piece. Now we'll run the real piece through. It's going to be the same procedure, multiple cuts. It's just going to be a lot longer. The top cove molding is done, just like I did on the sample piece on the last pass. We ran it through twice, and it came out real nice. Now there's one more cove molding we have yet to make, and that's a little bit different. I'll pull a sample of the original cove molding. See if we can get this on camera. As you can see, it's a typical cove molding, but we've also got a thumbnail to run. And there's really not that much difference between running the two cove moldings. It's the exact same setup. I will have to modify the fence angle, run a test piece, but I'm not going to bore you guys with those details. But I'll do that off camera, and when we come back, we'll talk about bevel cutting the moldings. And of course, cleanup. That can be first. Even with the cove cutter, the cove cutter does a really great job of cutting the cove molding, but as you can see, we've got a few imperfections we're going to have to clean out. And there's a couple ways we can go about it. We could use just a gooseneck scraper, like so, or we can use some sort of sanding block to clean up the cove molding. I think I'll start with the scraper, finish out the sanding block. Later on, we'll talk about cutting the bevel from the moldings and running the thumbnail.